All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about hiking in Lake Louise. And we've got the Big Beehive hike, the Lakeshore Trail, Plain of Six Glaciers, Lake Agnes Tea House, Mirror Lake, all sorts of cool activities in the Lake Louise area. And in this video, I'll show you the actual hike step by step. I've got footage of everything. And before I get into the actual hiking footage, which is outstanding, I'll just give you a few tips and pointers to make the hike even better. And I'll just start off here with why you should do this hike. So this is one of the most photographed natural areas in the entire world. You see photos of Banff, Lake Louise, all over the place. And if you're in this part of Canada, you should definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed. It's absolutely stunning. And I live here in Calgary, so not too far away from Banff. And I hike in Canmore and Banff quite often, so I'm quite familiar with it. And the reason why I like hiking the Lake Louise Big Beehive hike is just the sheer variety of terrain that you see. It's got a bit of everything. You've got the lake, you've got multiple lakes, you have the tea house, you've got cliffs, waterfalls, you have the glacier. You just have a bit of everything. The terrain keeps changing, and it gives you a good sense of what hiking in Alberta is all about, and you really can't go wrong with this hike. And next up, let's talk about how to get to Lake Louise, and I'll give you a few pointers as well. So for many tourists, they'll probably come through the Calgary airport, which is over here. And if you drive from Calgary on the Trans-Canada Highway, it's about a 2 to 2.5 hour drive to get to Lake Louise. You'll pass Canmore over here. Here's Banff. And about 40 minutes from Banff, you have Lake Louise right over here. I'll zoom in. So at Lake Louise, you have the ski resort on the north side of it over here. And then the hiking takes place over in this area. So here's the Fairmont Chateau Hotel. Here's the lake, hiking over here. And if you're also interested in Moraine Lake, which I would say is equally as beautiful, maybe a bit more scenic than Lake Louise, that lake is over here somewhere. It's not showing up on the map. But if you're a tourist, you have a few days here, definitely check out Moraine Lake and Lake Louise. And I'll give you a few pointers here. It's actually a bit difficult to get to Lake Louise. There's not much parking nowadays. The hike has really blown up internationally, and there are thousands of tourists here, and parking can be a bit of a challenge. In the past, I came here maybe 5-6 years ago, and I could park directly near the hotel. Those days are gone now, and it's probably best for most people to park at either the Lake Louise ski resort. There's a shuttle that will take you to the hotel area, or there's an overflow parking maybe 10 kilometers or so from Lake Louise. And even that little overflow area is becoming sold out. So you want to plan it in advance. But I would say for most people, you're probably better off to go to the Lake Louise ski resort, where there's like a huge amount of parking. And there's a cost though. I think it costs $30 per person, and they will take you from the ski resort to the hotel area and back. And that ticket, I think, is about $30 per person. And it's definitely overkill because the actual ride is like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops, and they're making a killing with these tickets. But it's definitely worth it. It's just a bit of a pain to get to Lake Louise. And the last thing I'll mention here, if you're driving yourself, you have like a rental car, I would avoid speeding. This road, the Trans-Canada Highway, the cops, and they ticket so many people every day. Whenever I go skiing at Lake Louise, I'll pass like 4 or 5 cops every time, and they're always giving out tickets. And if you're speeding, they'll definitely catch you. So I would avoid speeding and just plan in advance because this hike has become extremely popular. Now, when is the best time to do this hike? Now, I would say the hiking season for Lake Louise would be about mid-June until the first week or two of October. It takes a long time for the snow to melt in the mountains, and it also comes back quite early. You can have snowfall in the Rockies in September sometimes, so you have to watch out for the weather conditions. But for the most part, I would say the season is mid-June until the first week of October. Now, how difficult are these hikes? And I would say for most people, the Lake Louise hike is easy to moderate. It can be for all skill levels, all ages. When you're actually here, you'll see hundreds of tourists, maybe even 1,000 tourists on certain days. And you'll see kids all the way to elderly, and you'll see people who have a lot of hiking experience, and some have zero hiking experience. And I think as long as you're in reasonably good shape and good on your feet, this is a very doable hike. I would say it's probably a moderate hike if you look at other hikes around the Banff and Kananaskis area. So it's not that difficult. There are parts of it that are actually quite easy, like around the Lakeshore Trail, just walking the perimeter of the lake, which is flat. So there are easy parts, and there are parts that might get a little bit tougher towards the summit. But you don't actually have to go all the way to the summit. So it can be a hike for everybody. And I'll just give you a rough overview of the actual hike. So you start off at the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel. You'll walk around the lake for a little bit, maybe a kilometer or so. And then once you get to the switchback section, you'll start to make your way up the mountain. So the switchbacks are like the zigzag format as you go up the mountain. Not too exciting. It takes maybe an hour or so to do the switchbacks. Once you get above the tree line, then it becomes a bit more scenic and a bit more exciting. You'll come across Mirror Lake, and then you'll go up a bit further and you'll come across the Lake Agnes Tea House. That's definitely a bit more scenic, where you have good views of the valley. Now, the tea house itself is a bit of a tourist trap, if I'm being honest. There's always huge lamps to get in here. It takes forever. Personally, if it were me, I would just bring a backpack and have drinks and treats in your backpack versus going into the tea house. Again, that's just my opinion. Now, from here, you make your way around the lake, around the perimeter of it, and this is when you start to go up the switchbacks again and get to the summit of the Big Beehive. This is definitely worth it. It's a bit harder than the other parts of the hike. Once you get to the very top of the Big Beehive, this is when you see like the turquoise waters of Lake Louise, and it's definitely worth making your way to the very summit here. And coming back down, you have two options. You can make your way back the same way that you came up, which is what I'd recommend. It's a little bit easier. Or you can come down the back side of it, and you can connect with the Plain of Six Glaciers trail. Now, this might add like 5 kilometers to the actual trip, which is what I did because we got a bit lost. But I think for most people, you're probably better off just to follow the way that you came up. And the actual trail length might be about 10 to 11 kilometers if you go that direction. And here are a few tips that might be of interest. This is bear country, so definitely bring bear spray if you can. The good thing about Lake Louise is you do have safety in numbers. There are throngs of tourists here, and so there will be no shortage of bear spray on the mountain, but I'd still bring it just in case. I would bring water and treats in a backpack. I would bring layers as well. As you go up in altitude, the weather drops, and the Rocky Mountains can be unpredictable. So I'd definitely bring a hoodie. Even in the summertime, I would do that. If you're hiking this in September, you might want to have like a hat, gloves, and definitely some warm layers. And the last tip is definitely plan to get here early. It's a very busy hike, and there are, again, hundreds of tourists. And so I would try to avoid the masses of them by getting here as early as possible. All right, let's get into the actual footage.